Hey, this is Letta, and I wanted to do a video for you on a quilt, modern quilt that I'm quilting. I wanted to share with you some of the things to watch out for when you're quilting on these types of quilts, and so it's going to be a really sweet video. Is this a really modern quilt? It's more of a strip quilt with a modern take. So let's go. Alright, I wanted to share a disclaimer too. I was quilting this quilt at 6 in the morning, so if my hair is frazzled, no cuteness, it's because it was early. And the reason it was so early is because the day before everything went crazy and I didn't have time to quilt the quilt for the client, and I wanted to get it done. And so enjoy the it was morning 6. I'm not a morning person, but here we go. Okay, this quilt is a beautiful strip quilt. It has a lot of vertical and horizontal lines. A lot of times modern quilts either have a lot of open space or they have a lot of lines. They're very linear in a horizontal pattern or a vertical pattern. So when you're working on a modern quilt like this, it's how you baste it is very important. You want to have the lines go completely straight. You can see that the quilt was kind of wavy, the line was not straight. What I ended up doing is I maneuvered the fabric back and forth. Already basted everything. It's really early in the morning. And the good way to see it is this way, as I have you see how it's straighter. And all you have to do, I guess, is the cat scratch. And kind of work it a bit. How I'm making sure that the first line is completely straight. Now my leaders are not straight, so I have to make sure that the quilt line looks straight, even if my leaders are a bit off, because that's what matters when you're quilting it. If you're not paying attention to the line, you end up quilting it wonky. And then when you take it off, that line, we're very good. People are very good, because you usually look at horizontal and vertical lines constantly. We know what a straight line looks like. So people are going to see that it was quilted and it's dipped or angled or warped. Another thing, especially with quilts like this, they're modern, make sure that these lines are vertical and that they're straight, so that you keep and maintain the look the client was looking for. And so being mindful how you base is very important, and being mindful on how you're maneuvering the fabric once it is basted, that as the quilt is going along, that it stays in that position. I also look at the back tension back here. Here we go. All right, now you're on row 2. I wanted you to know that sometimes when you're rolling the quilt will shift to the right or the left. That's one of the reasons why I float my quilts. The reason I float my quilt is that it's easier to control it, the maneuvering of the quilt top, than if you have leaders on the quilt top. It just, sometimes the quilt top will overstretch and bow, and you don't want that. That's why I float. So that's just a floating tip. And floating your quilt is when you just lay the quilt top over and it just hangs down, and you're also floating the batting. But especially with these vertical lined quilts or horizontal quilts, you want to make sure constantly that the lines are straight, because you can barely be off slightly and it'll look wrong on the quilt. And then I get the 2 seams that are the vertical lines and just run them down the line, and then it seems to kind of straighten out the seam. So if there's any slight shifting, if you put your finger on the seam itself and roll it down, it straightens that line down. Make sure on the top area when you fold the quilt that you also have that corner area straight too. What I'm doing now is making sure that this design is not hitting the design I just placed. Row number 2 is done, so you can see you want the beautiful straight lines, and honestly this piecer did a beautiful job. Or even this is in line to this. We're gonna roll the quilt. We're gonna do row 3. Just like that. And I like looking at the back tension. How beautiful this quilting is. And then as I roll it, I do check the back to make sure that the back is just as beautiful as the front, because that's important. Look how beautiful this stitch is. So you see that this is bowing a bit. You kind of just put your hands on the seam and it'll kind of like straighten out the line. Alright, so now we're getting to the bottom row. A lot of times when I'm at the bottom row, I've already been quilting for about 2 or 3 hours and I'm exhausted and I don't want to deal with it and I don't want to be on top of it. But don't forget, be on top of it. You're almost done. You want to make sure that those border lines are nice and straight. And sometimes when I base down, I'm not paying attention and I'll over pull the fabric and then it's like this and it goes like that. That's not what you want. You want to make sure it's like this, straight. I'm just trying to explain. Straight. That's what you want, straight. And so when I base down, I try to make sure that I'm basting it down so I can control it when I'm quilting, but I'm also wanting to make sure that it is straight. And sometimes when I base it down to control it, the line is not clean and it's not a clean straight line. And this is where you can push and pull the fabric, finger scratch or cat scratch, however you want to call it. I call it the cat scratching. And then also too, you have to pay attention to those vertical lines, because on your last row you have those vertical lines and that bottom horizontal line. You want to make sure it's nice and nice vertically, horizontally. That's what you want, okay? So yeah. I really do thank you for watching this tutorial. See you in the next one. Bye.